All right. Well, welcome everyone. And I'd like to thank very much our speaker today, Claire Stirm, who is a project manager at the San Diego Supercomputer Center and the Science Gateway Center of Excellence, SGX3. Her research interests include science gateways, community building, and sustainability. And she received her master's degree in communications from Purdue University. Today, Claire is going to be talking about SGX3, a diversity of science gateways and consulting routes. So, without further ado, please, Claire, take the stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And before we got started, Tom, Maureen, and myself were actually catching up a little bit. And so it's a pleasure to be able to meet you all, talk to you all today, and happy to share a little bit about science gateways and this focus of what is science gateways and how do we think about them in terms of their diversity and also thinking about broader impacts. And then I'm going to talk a little bit too about how the Science Gateways Center of Excellence, which is funded out of the National Science Foundation, provides consulting throughout projects within the United States. And we've also done some international works as well that I can speak to as well. So kind of getting started. So science gateways are about web-based platforms for scientific connections. And when we think about how science gateways are applying their work, they're really these foundational units that have scientific software that's tapping into supercomputers. It's also tapping into massive audiences of researchers and students, expensive instruments, to data, and to each other. So we're thinking beyond the lens of a traditional approach of one-to-one, and that science gateways can really be these intersections between multiple units of science, disseminating the results, but also having these impactful workflows throughout the entire research process and even educational process. And I know Lorraine on the call also has her Science Gateway Geodynamics, which is also a great example here of how we're thinking about that scientific software tapping into supercomputing, tapping into data, tapping into the community as well, especially within the events that are put on by CIG. So I think a lot of great opportunities come out of science gateways and supporting the connections to computing, to instruments, data sets, and collaboration. And we think beyond just what's the application of a science gateway, but how it's been impactful. So gateways are not only just these instruments of activity, but have also had scholarly impact in some other measurable areas of success. One of our science gateways that we've been studying this work for quite a while, is Cypress, which is a science gateway out of the University of San Diego, led by Mark Miller. And it's a study of the tree life cycle. They have multiple different softwares, codes that are available that can be computationally intensive. So it's a great resource that's managed and has now been the result of, this is a little bit of a dated metric, but over 10,000 publications that the community has been able to write with data attributed out of Cypress itself. So a really unique metric of how a gateway has been impactful to a community, of being this mechanism for actually processing data and having a persistent place for managing and operating these codes. Another science gateway, NanoHub, which has tracked their scholarly impact more through the collaboration impact. thinking about vetted citations within their community, and then taking it a step further into secondary citations. So within their community, within their primary citations that the community has authored through the support of the Science Gateway itself, what are those secondary impacts that are happening? And this visual is a little bit of identifying those circular networks that are actually happening within the NanoHub community and when those citations are happening. So just a timetable, about 22 years of when this data was collected, but a little bit novel here and very interesting aspect of trying to track impact. We also think about fiscal impact. So if we were to set up a science gateway like the Protein Data Bank, which again, another product out of UCSD and also Rutgers, being able to recreate the data, recreate the models, recreate the science gateway as its foundational cyber image structure, how much would it take in today's cost to redesign and build? So they calculated this out in a report, which I believe is dated as 2019. So we can apply a little bit of additional math here with interest rates, but we have about 20 billion as their own estimate. And what they also calculate, which is really interesting, is their return on investment. So they believe that's been 1,500 times the federal funding that's been received. So it's a really interesting way of pivoting, how much has been applied to support these large efforts into how it's benefited the community at large. And then another display of impact is public impact. And this is one that we might often think of first, but science gateways are also very front forward facing. They're often misconstrued or simplified into just websites. So we often have conversations with researchers, conversations with folks that they are more powerful than our traditional website because they are tapping into all of these intensive models, data sets, and instruments, machinery. But the benefit is by being accessible through a web browser is you can provide easy to access models and information for the general public. So in this case of a COVID-19 Science Gateway that was set up during the pandemic, it was a useful mechanism for decision makers in Texas. And the PI for the Science Gateway actually was highlighted on CNN talking about her model and how it was designed and used. So impact in, again, a different mechanism. So as I mentioned, we've been studying science gateways for quite a few years now. You might have heard of us before as the Science Gateways Community Institute, which was started in 2016, led by Nancy Wilkins-Deere. That effort rounded out its funding in 2023, and now we have been operating as the Center of Excellence since 2022. And as the Center of Excellence, we have a few areas of focus. We focus on helping folks that are looking to build or run a science gateway on what it takes to actually do hands-on development, advice, and support. Usability, thinking about our users, what it takes to make the interfaces of those spaces most impactful. The hosting of a science gateway, sustainability, so that fiscal impact and how we persist through consistent funding for a science gateway, and also the landscape of science gateways. There are existing frameworks and there are existing science gateways. So really just helping folks partner with existing funding buddies or funding opportunities, but also partner with colleagues that they might have not met before and explore if there's an opportunity to post their project or share their data results on an existing platform instead of spinning up their own. We also help with education and training. We have, again, sustainability as a core focus. We have an in-person training through Focus Week, student and faculty training programs, and then a webinar series, which today we have a webinar at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 Pacific, that is going to be focused on our Blueprint Factory, which comes out of our network and community aspect, which is a little bit more designed towards outreach. And the Blueprint Factory is thinking about the future needs of science gateways. We have 2 that are ongoing, one that's focused on artificial intelligence and how it's going to be impacting science gateways, and another that is sustainability in science gateways. We also have our annual conference that's coming up. It'll be in Bozeman, Montana, October 8th through the 10th, and registration for that closes September 30th if anybody is interested. It's a great way to get a landscape of all the existing projects and hear about the work that's happening within this community. So going into a little bit of an additional metaphor here, we have our consulting arm, and within our consulting, we like to think about this as science gateways have primary roots in software and cyber infrastructure. However, their interfaces and uses are very different. And just as flowers need the helping hand of pollinators to help grow and diversify in their own kind of DNA strands, SGX3 is here to help the community grow. And we have a wide variety of efforts, as I've mentioned, but I would say 3 are really here to be most impactful and are offered as free resources to the community to help strengthen the support and backing of science gateways. So starting with usability, we do have a usability team out of Purdue University that focuses on a 2 to 3 month term to highlight what is a specific user interface or future user interface that you're looking to create for your science gateway, or even a future concept that you might be proposing. Our team will work with you. It is a team of students, graduate and undergraduate, that's learning under Dr. Paul Parsons. So it's an opportunity not only to apply their growing knowledge to the work that you're doing, but also for a workforce development opportunity for them as direct impact of how they're able to apply their work as trained professionals that they're looking to go out into the world, especially after they graduate and have this full-time job. So you'll receive different levels of this expertise throughout the engagement, but usability testing, a competitive analysis of similar products, and expert evaluation of your gateway based off established usability guidelines. So usability is something that often we'll start engagements with for our community members. Sustainability was another one I mentioned. This is something that we can do one-on-one consulting conversations with. We also have in-person training weeks that we spend with teams, just helping folks think through strategic plans and activities of what it will take for their project, their work to go out and be a little bit more competitive within their community and extend a hypothesis of sustainability beyond their initial funding. So a lot of the teams that enter the room with us are either 2 or 5 year grant from a funding buddy that is set to expire. Hopefully they're not joining us on the last day of their funding award because that doesn't give us very much time to help them go out in the world and find some success. But if they are starting mid award or even best yet, beginning award, they have time to think about what are some avenues that they can look at for sustainability and even explore further from there. And then from that point, being able to design a clear sustainability strategy that they can go back to their team and their department with hopefully some opportunity for support. And then technical advice is our last one that we offer. Being able to help guide teams looking to deploy a Science Gateway, help them look at existing frameworks, provide gap analysis, technical roadmap discussions, and then if applicable, we can help point to our partners at the San Diego Supercomputer Center and the Texas Advanced Computing Center, who have developers and teams that deploy Science Gateways, and they can do paid engagements with them if they're looking for some type of hosting or support that way. So again, we do provide all these resources for free through SGX3, and we have provided consulting engagements like this before through SGCI. So we have a storybook that captures these stories before, if you want to kind of read about some of the impact from our own side and how we've worked with Science Gateways prior. And of course, happy to share any links afterwards that I might have mentioned, but that is what I wanted to talk through today, just being able to address SGX3 and talk a little bit about the opportunities there. So hopefully that wasn't too rapid or overwhelming for folks. And I didn't lose anybody in the process of acronyms along the way.
It was perfect. Thank you very much. I will stop the recording now.